Hi everyone. I want to spend the next few minutes talking about the challenges of romance caused by a disability. This has been something that's been a big struggle for me. What I mean by this is I would thoroughly enjoy being a father, raising children, and preparing them for their adult lives. At the same time, I've been using a wheelchair since 2009, and there's no end in sight. As well, the effects of pain limiting my activities each day really would hinder how much time I could effectively spend with a son or daughter of mine. As well, there's the relationship that needs to be nurtured with a spouse. And again, the effects of pain would hinder this for me. And finally, the other obstacle, of course, is financial, where I only have a limited amount of money to work with. And it's hard for me to want to be in a situation where I would be putting people through financial hardship. So I want to talk about each of these topics for a few minutes. I received some wonderful encouragement a few years ago. This was from a man who had a freak train accident, and literally his arm and his leg had been severed after falling on tracks. He had a young son with him, as well as his wife. So when I saw him, it was at a home improvement store, and I asked if I could talk to him for a few minutes. His wife intuitively sensed that it was more serious than just a casual "how are you doing today," and took their young child to be somewhere else in the store so I could talk to him man to man. And I really got to the heart of the question immediately. I asked him, how does he raise a child and how does he maintain a relationship with a spouse when he's dealing with all this? His response was that the child was easily able to adapt to the physical disability, using a scooter for mobility and the prosthetic arm and leg that he has, and that he and his wife had just spent time working at the relationship, and they got through the hard time during the intense medical treatment to what is now their new normal. So I asked some more questions about the scooter because it is something that does weigh on me. I don't know that I'd want to subject a child to this. But the honest answer was that the child's intrigued by the wheelchair or scooter, and that it's something that shouldn't be considered. And if I think about this honestly, the youth that I spend time with at the pool, they are concerned that I need this, but after a few simple questions, I'm able to enjoy what I want to do each day. It doesn't really bother them, and they're glad for what I can do for spending time with them. So I know what he was saying to me was true. Another item that's been hard for me is that my surgery in 2013 could have killed me. I was on the highest dose of morphine allowed by the province of Ontario, Canada at the time because my pain was very severe. And to have a surgery, it's more the same drug class group that anesthetizes you, and they were genuinely worried about causing an overdose while trying to get my pain under control for surgery. It's really hard for me to want to put a family through this and risk that I die from treatment for me. Although certainly the way I was living wasn't any reason to continue on that way when the hip replacement surgery would certainly help. And I was able to reduce some of the pain medication following the surgery. And when I've talked to other people that are disabled about this and in experiencing chronic pain, they've all been honest with me that it's part of marriage and a commitment one to another, that it shouldn't be a concern if you need healthcare treatment. You do, you get it, and you have someone there that's for support. Where I'm at right now is I'm okay with that. It's still not particularly easy for me because I'm certainly not going to be in the role that I had envisioned when I was a child. But that's something else that doesn't seem worth giving any thought to if marriage is something that you're wanting to enter into, or even in a dating relationship. The one day I was talking to a teen that I've got to know, 19 years old, and I said to him, "You've now spent some time with me. Did you honestly think that I would make a good dad for raising you if you were my son?" And he was emphatic that I would do a wonderful job raising either my own children or foster parenting. Certainly at the age of 39, I have more interest now in foster parenting than raising my own children. And there's no lack of youth that need someone to love them and give them a stable home environment where they're cared for. And really that cared for is what the several conversations that I've had have come down to. The biggest challenge then for dating is that, unfortunately, the last time I checked at least, women didn't start falling from the sky and end up in your life. So you need to have some type of social interaction. I do have confidence in online dating, but if I'm honest with you, I don't know that I would be in pursuit of a spouse. I would be interested in a relationship where there's the possibility of marriage, but not aiming for that from the start. Because I would really want to get to know somebody so that I wouldn't get married, at age 40 and find myself in divorce court 2 years later. You'd want a relationship to be solid, and the commitment there, if you haven't entered it yet, just because in a relationship it may ideally be a 50-50 balance between chores and support. With the set of physical challenges that I have, that balance is not going to be there in the same way. There are going to be certain things that I'd be able to commit to the household and the relationship, but then there's going to be time when I'm just going to need to be left alone to rest, like I need to rest most days, and also the time I need to spend doing my therapy in the evenings so that my body doesn't further deteriorate. So it'd be a different type of structured relationship. And I think I'm okay with that. Again, it's not easy for me, but when I think about it logically, having somebody else here with me and slugging alongside of me in life would certainly be easier than me going at life by myself. So the benefits of a spouse outweigh the singleness challenges that come from being by myself and having to manage everything in life. There's been a lot of advances in reproductive health, and certainly being fearful of not having a choice to be a father or to be a parent isn't something that you should really be worried about. And this is another topic that I've looked into. Physically speaking, I'm not able to perform or engage in sexual intercourse. What's wrong with my body just doesn't allow it. There are many alternatives available, and again, it's a topic that really shouldn't be a concern to you if you're wanting to have an intimate relationship and be committed to somebody that would come along with that level of intimacy. The financial concerns, I got a good tip when I first lost the use of my hips. So where I live is in Canada, and there's two, if all else fails, disabilities available. One's available through the province where I live. The other disability is through the Canadian government, or a federal disability. There's a branch of Canada Pension Plan that if you meet certain criteria, the last time I checked was that you had worked 4 of the previous 6 years before you ended up with your disability that was expected to last for some time, that you could be eligible for theirs. There's more to it than that, but that's the gist of it, that you had to be part of the workforce because this is funded through Canada Pension Plan. That money is linked to the person. So to me, if the disability from the province where I live is based on household income, meaning your spouse and the money they earn reduces the money that the province gives you as a last resort disability. So when I thought about it, I made the inquiry if there was anything different between the two of them, and a social worker told me that the federal disability was for the person. So I brought the application to my doctor in 2010, and I explained to him that I was keen to be able to consider marriage, and if this is something that I wanted to do, I needed to fill this out now because my eligibility criteria would be expiring shortly. There was a secondary interview I needed to have, and it was an explanation of what my treatment was at the time and what a reasonable tenor is that I could be put through the review process if treatment was unsuccessful. And I'm open about what's going on with me, and I answered these questions. I had to go through the review process, but essentially I hadn't recovered. The surgery hadn't done what was expected, so I was renewed indefinitely. And it's part of being truthful and honest from the get-go. So some people are going to have access to this option. I do realize that it's not for everyone. And I do want to acknowledge that not everyone is going to have money that they could have for themselves from a disability to contribute to the household income. There's opportunities now with the internet to have a part-time job. And I would encourage you, quite honestly, to consider this if you have the motivation and the ability to work, even if it's just a few hours each week. It's part of self-esteem and self-worth that you're doing what you can for yourself It's to make life a little bit more normal, and it's also for that your life is not just healthcare appointment after healthcare appointment after healthcare appointment. I would encourage you to research what you can do online. There's surveys that can become a source of income. There's also the options of website blogs, making crafts that you can sell online. You could even get into maybe website design if you only had half a dozen customers that you serviced. There's more than this for options, and it's something that you can dare to dream, because the internet's able to be your face and your storefront while you're in bed taking care of yourself. I mean, for all that matters, you could start a successful gift basket business with the internet being your storefront, and you just ship them to maybe within the country where you live, or if you want to stay regionally, here in the province or within the county where you live. There's also the option of making crafts throughout the year, and then once a year you either have a craft show at your home, or you put out your feelers in the community, find out when a community craft sale is going to take place, and you sell your goods there. And in the meanwhile, you design a small website that you're willing to do custom crafts, and you put a little blurb on there about yourself and explain who you are, what's gone on with you, and that this is just a way that you're essentially helping yourself. And I certainly think it's admirable that you consider doing this. And let's say that you only bring in $50 or $75 a month into your household income. What I want to tell you is that it's $50 or $75 a month that you wouldn't have had before. $50 a month is $600 a year. That's certainly nothing that I would walk away from the opportunity to trying to engage in and receive. Every dollar helps, as I say, and when you're dealing with a physical disability, it costs you more to live than what is typical option. I want to speak also on another topic I've just thought of. It's the issue of mobility, where a wheelchair is your means of walking around. There's a few options that you could put feelers out for. One would be buying a wheelchair accessible van from a taxi company when they're ready to discard it, and you take care of it, and you really do genuinely care for it, and that would be your vehicle to get around. And you either take the course yourself, where you drive with the gas and brakes being controlled by the hand and one hand's on the wheel. Where I live, there's a mobility bus service as well. All the bus routes in town are wheelchair accessible, so that's another option for you. What I want to say to you is that even if you're in a wheelchair, doesn't mean that you and your spouse couldn't either go out shopping together, or when my dad was down to visit me last summer, he and I went for a walk together. I was using my wheelchair, but it's something that I'm going to remember. My dad's ill with liver cancer and unfortunately isn't going to recover. That time that I spent with him will be something that I remember when he's gone. So there still is that life to be lived. Canada's national train service via rail is wheelchair accessible. You do have to travel to manned stations, so cities and very large villages, and they have a ramp that you just drive your wheelchair onto it. They turn a handle, get you up, you drive on, and then there's a matching ramp where your destination is, or if you need to make a transfer at a major hub like Toronto, Ontario, Canada's Union Station. So traveling and spending time with your spouse really is not something that you need to concern yourself with. The final type of budget dialogue that I want to have for you is that it may be necessary that you consider non-traditional items to help lower your cost of living. So some examples from my own life: I deal with a no-fee banking service. So there's no fees associated with typical day-to-day transactions. And that saves $120 a year. I use voice over IP for my home phone service. So what that means is my internet connection provides the infrastructure, and then I have a little voice over IP adapter that's about $5 a month. And that's my home phone service, since I can't have both a cell phone and home phone. It maximizes the cost of my internet connection and gives me the most usage out of it possible. So that's a solution that legitimately works, and it works well for all that matters. There's a few other things that I've done that have helped my cost of living. So thankfully I've been able to retain ownership of this home. So doing things like adding extra insulation. If you have an electric hot water tank, you can put a timer on it so that the water is hot when you're just about to shower, and you can also insulate an electric hot water tank to make the water stay hotter longer. So there's items that you can ask to your building department or your building code enforcement staff where you live on what are strategies to help you save money. And if you're honest that you need the help, I've found the local building code staff to be extremely helpful and willing to tell you or tell me the most straightforward way of doing things, and very open to helping and giving advice instead of coming after the fact and taking enforcement action. So it's all a matter of presentation, being humble, being open, and asking questions, and you can save yourself money. I mean, I've probably knocked down my electric bill about $800 a year just by conservation efforts. And if I'm honest with you, I still have heat, I still have hot water, refrigerator, and the insulation's there. There's things that you can do that will help you in the long term if you can put up the money up front. So it's advantageous if you're able to own a modest home, is what I'm getting at, or if you can partner with your landlord and make it an energy efficient home. Certainly this has helped me, and it's certainly been instrumental in me retaining ownership of my home. So online dating is one venue for getting out there. There's also the option of church or some type of community group where you're out there. I did see a sign at my doctor's office that sort of was a what I learned about life type poster. I don't remember the source, but one of the statements on it was that don't look for a spouse. When you need one, they'll come into your life. May not have been those words verbatim, but I do think that there is truth in this. And I don't know that being focused on getting a spouse and not having one would be demoralizing, instead of trying to get myself ready and doing what I can to prepare so that if I did meet a significant other, that I would be able to enjoy lifelong together. It does mean being able to articulate what's wrong with you and negotiating how the relationship will work. But if I'm honest with you, any relationship needs to have these dialogues. I tend to find that my life is a lot more intentional than when I was able to walk and I wasn't hindered by the effects of pain. But even so, I am enjoying this life, and I would like you to have the same joy in it. I hope something I've said is able to be of help to you. I realize this is longer than most videos that I make. This was one of the topics that someone suggested I speak on. If you have others, please let me know. I'm very interested in doing what I can to support you in this life and share and help you glean from what I've learned if I'm further ahead of you in your journey. Thanks for the time that you spent with me today. Bye for now.